So, the new 2025 BMW X3. I don't know what to say in addition to things I've already said about BMW. So the X3 is BMW's best-selling vehicle. So for me, this is a statement from BMW of what their key core design of their brand is going to be. And I have to say it right now, like I prefer the previous generation X3 a lot more than this. It had more of a automotive emotional design to it, and I feel like in general, in the world today, in society, we're losing the definition, the classic traditional definition of what beauty is. We're now moving into a much more minimalistic style. It doesn't just happen in exterior car design, it also happens a lot in interior design. I think even more so when it comes to car interiors, and this X3 is a perfect example of that. We don't have any sort of, it feels like we don't have any pride in the small details anymore, and details matter. Just look at the car from the 60s, just how beautifully manufactured and the craftsmanship that went into those cars, and compare that to today. I still think we could still do stuff like that even with the advanced technology that we have today. It also happens in architecture as well, and in a bunch of different products, pretty much across the entire design field. Everything is becoming much more, it loses the characteristics of the products, and everything becomes more bland. I don't know what's going on here, but this is what we have for the new 2025 X3. It doesn't look too bad. I mean, it could be it could be worse. I guess that's the good news here. But I'm gonna compare it to the previous generation X3 and let you know exactly why I think the previous X3 is such a better design when it comes to automotive design specifically than this new X3 right here. We're gonna compare it from front, side, and rear, and also I guess almost specifically the interiors for this car. They were doing so well with the skytop concept. I was hoping that that was the direction BMW was going to go in. You know, have a more traditional a car that when you walk up to it, you see the face and it has an expression. It gives you an emotion. I don't get any sort of emotion from current BMWs of 2025, unfortunately. But let's have a look at this article from Car and Driver, what this car is all about. The good news is that it is still, you still have an engine, an internal combustion engine in it, and it's pretty powerful. You have two different options. The 2025 BMW X3 pairs funky styling with punchier powertrains. You have the X-Drive 30, utilizes 255 horsepower turbocharged 2-liter 4-cylinder equipped with a 48-volt hybrid system. I think that setup sounds pretty good already for the base model. Not sure if you really need to bump it up because you have the hybrid system in the base as well. Then you have the X3 M50, which has a turbocharged 3-liter inline 6 paired with a 48-volt hybrid system there as well, and that's putting out 393 horsepower. Not bad at all. The X-Drive 30 starts at just over $50,000 or $50,675. The M50 opens up at $65,275. And it's also, I'm not sure how much bigger, how much more cars are going to grow, because it seems every new car is bigger than the model it replaces. So it has to stop at some point, or we're gonna have to redo the entire infrastructure that we have in society today. The roads needs to be bigger and so on. But the 2025 model measures 1.3 inches longer and 1.1 inches wider than a predecessor, but it sits 1 inch lower. So it gives it a pretty decent stance for this car. BMW is dropping the I in, so it's not X-Drive 30i or M50i anymore, because those are now exclusive to the BMW EVs. And that is also a very confusing thing to me, because the I used to stand for fuel injection, and now it's exclusive to EVs, which don't have anything to do with fuel injection anymore. New take on BMW's iconic kidney grille for the base model, featuring a clashing mix of vertical and diagonal bars. It looks completely messy in this area. This up here is the base model, because none of these diagonal lines, they have zero connection to anything else going on in the front end design. We're gonna, of course, talk more about that in Photoshop in a minute. The grille is illuminated as standard on the M50, is an option on the base model. However, the M50 gets a much simpler blacked out look for the grille, and I definitely prefer the M50's grille here. The xDrive 30 rides on 19-inch wheels as standard. You have 20s or 21 as options. You also don't see the tailpipes on the X30i. They're hidden, while the M50 proudly display twin exhaust tips on either side of the bumper. So you have quad exhaust pipes on the M50, which I think is great, because usually what car companies do today, even if you have a high performance model, they tend to just hide the exhaust pipes, and I'm glad that BMW is sticking them right there in your face when you look at the rear view. The cabin packs a bold look highlighted by unusual ambient lightings. And here you can see this. I'm not gonna comment too much on this interior right now. I'm gonna wait until we go into Photoshop here. You have, of course, traditional BMW layout with two screens here, probably 12.3 inch and this 14.3 or something like that for the infotainment screen, both combined in the infotainment screen. This is now an iDrive 9 system, which has led BMW to further reduce the number of physical controls in the interior. A head-up display remains optional. Steering wheel is flat on the bottom here, so it feels a little bit more sporty. On an M50, you get this red 12 o'clock line up here, which seems to be a trend right now. A lot of car companies are doing that. I think I made a video, the last video I made also had a red line up here for the, that was the Audi e-tron, the RS e-tron GT. So 255 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque for the base xDrive 30, 0 to 60 in about 6 seconds and a top speed of 130 miles per hour. The M50 with the 3-liter inline 6 comes out at 393 horsepower and 428 pound-feet of torque, 0 to 60 in 4.4 seconds. Not bad at all. And if you go with the driver M package or whatever it's called, you can bump up the top speed to 155 miles per hour. It will be continued to be produced in the US, in South Carolina, with sales kicking off later this year. So with that said, let's jump into Photoshop here. Let's have a look at this design and what is going on with the new X3. As I said, this is a statement from BMW. This is what they want their cars to look like when it comes to design language, since this is BMW's best-selling vehicle at the moment. So it's a very, very important vehicle. But look up top here and just how much more curves. And the thing is, I feel like this feels like you can imagine a designer actually sketching these lines up and designing this car by hand. And that is the sort of how I analyze new designs. If I can sketch this smoothly by hand, even though this lower section right here feels a little bit static to me, and I want to redesign this and have it sit a little bit lower, specifically these pieces in the side here, want to have them be in line with this key graphics that we have down here. But other than that, it's a beautiful looking design, and this is definitely the one I would buy. So the good news is, if you want an X3, just buy a used 2023 or 2022 one. You will get the cleaner design that we had in the current generation before this new one goes out on sale. So beautiful design, even though a little bit static here in the headlight unit here as well with these graphics. I want to have some more dynamic features for the daytime run lights, but I do like the grille here, blacked out. We have almost, you can say this is separation between the two kidneys. In the new one though, this being the M50, you can see that we have the cleaner design for the grille here. The grille itself, the kidneys in the middle, the proportions of them and how they fit in the front end looks pretty decent to me, because we have a separation here, as you can see, and they're not too stretched out vertically, so there doesn't look like the iX, for example, with two very long kidneys going down something like this, which looks very strange and doesn't really look that good. But this looks so much better than that. But one thing that is very annoying to me is you see the headlight unit here. Still a pretty clean design for the headlights as well. Very simplistic. I wish we had a little bit of a chamfer going around it here so it feels welcomed in the front end. But we have this connection. You can see it here and here as well. It just barely touches the corner of the grille. And it feels like it doesn't know if it should touch it or if it should move back a little bit and have some sort of body color right here, or if it wants to crash completely into the grills like this. But having it like this, like halfway, just barely with the corner touching the corner of the grill, it's a bit annoying, but I also kind of like it because it gives me, at least it gives me an emotion when I look at that design. What I don't like about this front end is, first of all, how high it sits. It feels like it's like a facade of just graphics in the front end. I also don't like that this piece down here is blacked out, because now what happens is we have this lower section taking up too much visual space and takes away from the key graphics, which has always been these kidneys in the front end. So the black kidneys should always have priority when it comes to the key graphics in the front end of a BMW. But now you can see that this lower section here is the largest piece of black graphics in the front end, which totally clashes with the kidneys up top. And then we have these lines that I don't understand. This is, this is the new design language of BMW, just putting random lines everywhere. This line does not feel nice at all, having this connection to the lower section of the grille. And then we have a curvature here, and we also have different type of radiuses. We have one radius here, a different type of curvature here, sharp corner here, sharp corner here. It just feels like it's all over the place, this front end, specifically in the lower section. The top half, I actually think looks pretty good. There's nothing wrong with this. I also like these daytime run lights, even though I wish they were a little bit thicker like this, so we could have some dynamic feeling to it, more of a hockey stick design, to create some thickness in the key areas of the design and have them look more that they are in motion than just having the same size or width of these daytime run lights. But overall, I mean, for BMW, for current BMW standards, this is not a bad looking front end. However, looking at the side view, and this is where it gets complicated for me, specifically comparing it to the previous generation, because the previous generation, look at how beautiful these surfaces flow. We have a nice shoulder line right here. You can see how it connects to the corner of the headlight going through here, and then a clear connection right here to the corner of the taillight. I also like that the fenders, they stick up and intrudes with the shoulder line, because you can see how it bulges out here, specifically in the rear end fender, creating this big muscle. But the shoulder line is still intact. It's still one single line. It's just being abrupted here by this big fender in the back, creating a nice stance for this car and adding muscle to this design. I'm not a huge fan of these plastic pieces, the graphics that BMW randomly puts here, because it doesn't have any line up top. I want to have a connection to it up top as well. But I do like this line down here at the bottom, and this down at the very low section here as well. Creates a nice planted stance again, because this is bulging outwards, so it feels like it's hugging the road in a side view. The proportions of this car, the previous X3, were just gorgeous. It looks fantastic. We have a nice dip curvature for the hood here. We have a beautiful front end and the greenhouse as well, looking very sporty. Wheels look fine as well. Not the best looking wheels, but they still look very sporty. Now looking at the new one here, have a look at this line first of all, how it just swoops upwards slowly and with this interesting curvature. And I am not sure, where is this line going? I mean, it has no connection to any sort of graphics in the rear end. Yes, it does follow this line that is the lower piece of the greenhouse here, but that's pretty much it. And then we have these new IX inspired fenders that feels, again, more static, more industrial design, and doesn't have this fluid integration that we did have in the previous one, where everything seems to just flow so nicely in the line flow of the car. Everything now is more computerized, and this is what I'm talking about when I say that it feels like these cars are designed straight in a 3D software coming out and not being hand sketched. We also have a different solution for the hood. Now it sticks almost straight out like this before it dips down in the front end, whereas in the previous one we have a nice curvature, creating, again, more rounded, more emotional lines in the BMW, like I want to see in BMWs. And now looking at the rear end here, as I said, I wasn't a huge fan of of these halo taillights that we have right here of the facelifted X3. I definitely prefer, I think the most beautiful X3 taillights came out in 2018. Those are the ones I would get for my X3. If I was buying one today, I would buy a 2018 one. But other than that, it's a very beautiful treatment here. You can see just all these beautiful lines going and flowing into these soft pieces of surfaces. We have a nice chamfer here at the bottom in the bumper going into the taillights, and we have a pretty decent diffuser down here. I would probably want to cut this and not have these pieces bulge out and stick out like this. I would want to have this still be body color, but other than that, the integration of everything here in the back looks very, very clean. Now looking at the new one here, I think if I'm gonna have a favorite view of the new X3, it's going to be the 3/4 rear view, even though it feels like this is a much more vertical design than what we had here. This feels like the rear window has more of an angle to it. Maybe it does here too. It's just this big framing for it that makes it feel like it sits a lot more vertical than it does in the previous one. But the taillights, I kind of like the design of the taillights here. I think they look better than they do on the previous one, because look at this. At least in the rear end, we do have some dynamic flow here. A thin piece here and then goes into this thicker piece, creating this motion, almost arrow-like design. But this surface here is a huge empty surface, and I do think this line sits maybe a little too low for me, making it feel almost like a minivan style design. I do like the integration of the rear diffuser here though. It looks pretty clean to have just a simple diffuser without any weird lines in this area cutting and making triangles like BMW seems to like to do now. However, this piece of graphics feels out of place. The angle of it and the design of it just feels like a random black graphic piece that they applied onto the rear end. But as I said, if I were to pick one view for the new X3, it's going to be the 3/4 rear view. Now, last but not least, this interior. So we've seen the vision concepts from BMW and just, I guess, their vision of where they want to take their design, specifically D concept that is supposed to be the new 3 Series. I think the new 3 Series is going to be a very, very minimalistic design. But just compare these two and you tell me, which of these interiors would you want to spend 1,000 miles in? If you're going on a long road trip, which one of these feels like the more cozy, the more warm and welcoming interior? For me, it's no question that the top here, the old one, is the one that I would pick, because we have a much more detail-oriented interior with all these small features. We have a cap for the gauge cluster. Not sure why BMW went away from this layout of the iDrive 7, I do believe this is. And this integration of the screen looks so much better than what we have on BMWs right now. But I've talked about this so many times before. We also have this array of physical buttons here. Radio settings, volume knob, everything is being, a touch, a dial that you can actually feel. Some beautiful carbon fiber here. And look at this, we have some styling on the passenger side of the dash, styling in the vents for the passenger as well. A very, very clean and cozy interior. Now look at the new one and look at this entire area here. There is nothing that goes on here. It's completely void of any sort of styling. And I'm not sure what this is with these big light bars in the interior that has a slider now for the temp control. It looks like these are the sliders. I'm not sure. These look to be the sliders for the temp controls. And there's not a single button here anymore. Unfortunately, everything is within the iDrive 9 system. And we also removed the cap for the interior. These graphics that we have here on the side, it looks almost vulgar to me. It doesn't look elegant at all. It looks very industrial. In addition to that, if you look at the graphics here, just how abruptly they clash with the center dash here going in from the door. There is zero connection with the graphics that we have here. We could have at least made some sort of styling right here, maybe a line that goes up here to have some sort of connection to what's going on in the door, or something like this. I'm not sure what it would be, but something to just tie everything together. This looks like a bunch of different graphics placed randomly in the interior and being separated by these key graphic areas in the interior. We also have this disco bar down here in the center console. with a new design for the gear shifter as well. So overall, I mean, this is what BMW is doing these days. Personally, I do wish, I'm not sure it's going to happen, probably not, but I do wish BMW went back and hired some, I guess, some old school designers to bring back, not bring back old designs, but keep the automotive vibe alive in their cars, because BMW used to be some of the best looking cars when it comes to personality, with the front end, with this confident front end that I loved so much about the E46, the E39, and the old 7 Series going back to the 80s. And personally, I might be old school, but I definitely prefer to have a clean separation between industrial and product design, which are supposed to be more functional, and automotive design, which I said before is supposed to give you, as soon as you look at the car, you're supposed to get a feeling coming from that car. And I think that is lacking in today's car design, specifically when it comes to BMW.